Yes. Oh, hi. Oh, okay. Are we staying? Welcome, everyone, to this meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie. On March 19th, 2025, we will begin with a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we begin with a roll call.
Okay, good evening, Bill Reuter, First Ward.
Hi, Barbara Laird, Second Ward. Ann Berger, Third Ward.
Michael Safone, Fourth Ward.
Good evening, Ryan Sharp, Fifth Ward.
Ann Churchian, Sixth Ward.
Felicia Salvatore, Town Clerk.
Emily Svensson, Attorney to the Town.
Rebecca Edwards, Town Supervisor. I believe that before we get any further, Council Member Ann Churchian would like to make a motion.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to move item 4 to the top of the agenda.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries 7-0. All right, then we will,
Just
should
a
do
point
4
of
and 5.
clarification.
I think we should,
Three and
three.
four.
Three and four.
Yep,
3 and 4.
I think we need another motion now for 3.
Make a
Three and
motion to move 3 to the top of the agenda and 4 to the second
Okay.
Second.
agenda. Okay.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries 7-0. Okay, let us begin then, I think, with resolution number 3, which on the printed as number 3, the retirement of Sergeant Christopher Barnhart. Bill Reuter, would you like to do the honors?
Yes. Be it resolved, Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby accept with regret retirement of Christopher Barnhart, Sergeant with the Town of Poughkeepsie Police Department effective March 28th, 2025. So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Congratulations. Wishing him the best. Oh, he's hiding in the corner. There you go. Woo. Very honored to have you as a member of the department and wish you the very, very best. Although I must say, Chief and I discussed today the fact that you already had a walkout. I said, what happened? And then he's back. But you are going to really get your walkout on the end on March 28th. So all those in, yes, did you want to say
Just like to say,
anything?
maybe we can have you back as a consultant.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Chris, for your
Chris, a pleasure knowing you for the last few years and working with you on the contracts and everything. And I appreciate the work you've done for the town in all your capacity and all your job descriptions. So thank you very much. And congratulations. Retirement is wonderful. Welcome to the club.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The resolution carries 7-0. You are retired. All right.
All right.
Resolution number 4.
Yes, be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby authorize the promotion of Police Officer Kevin Brady to the position of Police Sergeant at the yearly salary of $131,337.36, which promotion shall be subject to a probationary period as described by the rules for the classified civil service of Dutchess County, effective March 31st, 2025. Be it further resolved that the Town Supervisor is authorized to execute and file all documentation required by the Dutchess County Department of Human Resources in connection with this promotion. So moved.
Second.
Second. Okay. Any discussion?
Couldn't-
Thank you very much to the chief for the recommendation and congratulations. Sorry. Mike?
All those in favor?
Well deserved.
Well deserved.
That's very well deserved.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution carries 7-0.
We are going to swear you in right here, Kevin. If you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kevin Brady,
I, Kevin Brady,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United
I
States
support the Constitution of the United
and
States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of
and
New
that I
York.
will faithfully discharge
I will faithfully discharge
the duties of
the duties of
Police Sergeant
Police Sergeant
for the town of Poughkeepsie
for the town of Poughkeepsie
according to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Right. Now we have to move on to some very boring public hearings. That was the exciting part. Okay, I believe we then go back to the public hearing, which is number 1. Shall we move to, Ann, do you want to do the motion? Or you want me to?
Motion to open up the public
Yeah,
hearing.
we may want to wait just a
All right,
second.
we'll wait. It's a little loud. Don't be a stranger. Right, don't have too much fun. Life.
Staying in the area? Oh, okay. I'm sure you'll be busy. Yep, I agree.
Nice job, Chris.
Have fun.
All right.
Okay, and I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay. Ann Shershen is recusing herself on an issue related to short-term rentals. So,
We're going to open up the motion to open up the public hearing.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The public hearing on code amendments to the short-term rental code is now open. I see Doreen online wishing to speak. Doreen, welcome.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to say that, as I have previously said, I don't think that accessory dwelling units should be included as a short-term rental in the town. I'd made this comment at the January 27, 2025 Town Board meeting, and that was the meeting where Trevor Rettel, who is chair of the Town's Committee on Housing Affordability, said that he definitely agreed with my opinion, that he didn't want to see ADUs turned into short-term rentals, and that the committee was definitely looking at it as an issue. Also, there's a program from New York State called the +1 ADU program, and that's accessory dwelling units. And that program will require compliance monitoring to confirm that the ADU is being used as permanent housing rather than as short-term rentals. So, as I've said before, if the town's serious about addressing the housing shortage, which was supposedly the reason for expanding accessory dwelling units, then I don't believe that the board should allow ADUs to be used as short-term rentals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just two quick things to just say that I believe at the last meeting, we did put a sharp cap on the total number of hosted and unhosted rentals, short-term rentals. And also, I don't know if we mentioned this at a board meeting yet, but Hudson River Housing has received a $6 million grant through that +1 program with the state. And there are 8 municipalities in which income eligible residents will be able to apply for a little bit of that money to help create an ADU, and it would be Hudson River Housing that's going to oversee and monitor. And we're one of those 8 municipalities. So apparently they're going to have a capacity for people to sign up and express interest within the next month or two. So I'm hoping by the end of this week to have some information. Anybody else who wanted to speak on this matter? Okay, seeing none, then I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The resolution carries 7-0. The public hearing is closed. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to mention the friendly amendment towards the bottom of page 1.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, so at the very end, on the second to the last row of the first page, the written recommendation that we received from the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development was dated February 27th, 2025, not February 6th, so we should change that. All right, if there's no further discussion,
And just for clarification,
Yes.
Supervisor, the restriction inclusive of access ADUs is 10, right? 10 units. Is that what I
I think we
remember?
did.
Unhosted,
I think we said 10 unhosted,
20 hosted.
20 hosted, for a total of 30 in the
Okay,
town.
so for a town of 45,000 residents, that's pretty
Pretty,
significant.
we had
Pretty
previously the cap had been 30 unhosted,
Yeah.
and there was no cap on the number of hosted rentals.
Yeah.
And we definitely, if encouraging ADUs, wanted to make sure that, there's a compromise here between having zero short-term rentals, but trying to make sure that most of the new ADUs are not short-term rentals, but are long-term housing. Okay, good. Anybody else? Okay, then, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Did anybody actually move the resolution, or was that just?
No, I guess we just
Uh-oh.
opened and closed the
Kinda-
public hearing and
Let's
then
do that again then.
Go ahead.
So I would,
we'll
Ann,
close
did you
the
want?
public hearing, right?
Yep.
And now I'll read the resolution, right, Felicia?
Or
Perfect.
summarize it?
Right, we're gonna summarize it. So the public hearing, we had two of them on March 5th, and then this evening to revise and clarify the regulations regarding short-term rentals, in part as they relate to recent changes in the regulation of accessory dwelling units. And be it further resolved that the proposed laws annexed, the town board previously declared its intent to act as lead secret agency. Be it further resolved that the town board has reviewed the long assessment form prepared by the Director of Municipal Development, and has determined that the adoption of the hearing code amendment would not have any significant adverse event on the environment, and the supervisor, number two, the supervisor or her designee are authorized to execute parts 2 and 3 of the EAF, and part 3, a draft environmental impact statement will not be required for the reasons set forth. And number 4, a negative declaration is hereby issued. Be it further resolved, a recommendation was received from Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development on February 27th, 2025, stating that the proposed code amendment is a matter of local concern. A written recommendation dated February 21st, 2025 was received from the Town of Poughkeepsie Planning Board, in which the board conveyed a neutral recommendation on the board regarding the adoption of this code herein. Legal notice was made, of course, the town clerk notified surrounding municipalities. Be it resolved, said local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State. So moved.
Second, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the resolution carries 6-0 with one board member recused, not confused, recused, possibly both.
Maybe
I am,
confused.
but yeah. Okay, then let's move on to, resolution number 2.
Is that me?
That would be you, yep.
All right, this is for a rezone for 8189 Inwood Avenue, approximately 33.62 acres, to be changed from resident single-family 2 acre to resident single-family 20,000 square foot. And,
Can move to open the public hearing?
yeah, we could do that, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is open then. Welcome, thank you for being here.
Good evening, thank you for having me here. If I can remember how to use Zoom, it'd be great.
You should be able to share screen.
Yeah.
I'll give it just a minute here.
May I just clarify while we're in a lull here that, this is, just so the board is aware, there are two things you're approving here. One is the rezoning, and the other is the, density bonuses for the open space and senior housing incentives. So just have that on the record, we're approving both of those things.
Great, thank you very much.
Or considering both of those things.
Consider it.
To you whether to approve.
That's what's on the table.
Yeah,
And we're working off amended.
yes, thanks.
And good evening, this is Rob Flower, I'm on the Zoom call, unfortunately I couldn't be there tonight, I'm one of the developers on the project, but I am on the Zoom as well.
Thank you, welcome, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, thanks for having us.
Let me try joining again.
Thanks, Felicia.
There we go, I got it.
No, no. There we go,
Yeah.
perfect.
Perfect. See, I scared you.
I apologize.
You might need to turn the volume down on your,
Just turn it off.
Mute the computer.
So, as was stated, we're here tonight to ask for a zone change for the existing parcel on Inwood. It's currently zoned R2A, which is kind of, I think, left over from when it was a state school or something next door. And we'd like to go to R20, which is 20, which is predominantly around the area. The development, as stated before, is designed to offer an enormous amount of open space, senior living, and it's a development that's condensed so that about 50% of the site remains undisturbed. And through that, we've got some incentives that come to us that enable us to kind of bump up the number of units a little bit. And I'll go through a real quick presentation just to kind of show us where we were and for general public a little bit. So it's about 33 acres of land shown here on the map. As you can see, a lot to the south and the east is zoned R20. So we're asking for a similar zoning. It's a residential use. This kind of shows the zoning. The orange is the R2A. The light green is the R20. The development is slightly changed from what was presented to the board previously. We've been working with the planning board and town planners and engineers and departments to come up with a plan that works for everyone, and I think we've gotten there. So we've made a few modifications, relocated roads and houses, and changed whether we're doing patios or decks to avoid a lot of impacts. Not that there was a lot, but there were some impacts that were kind of key to the town that they were concerned with. And so we were able to do that. And we were able to get through seeker back in January 16th after all the modifications and the assessments were completed, which has brought us here. So we the development, like I said before, offers a lot of wide range of amenities, a sense of community. There's a community center, there's trails, there's common amenities such as bocce ball courts and pickleball courts and that sort of thing, which are kind of meant to function for the residents. These are townhouse type units. They're about 1,800 square feet each, duplexes. They're very nicely done as far as the architecture goes. There was some thoughts as to what we're going to do, and a lot of it is more like a craftsman style architecture. Very similar footprints for each home, but different roof lines, different porch configurations, different window locations, that sort of thing, which really make them look different. So it's not just you're going to go down, you're going to see 76 of the exact same units. I think they look very nice. We didn't design them, but I still think they look nice. Single car garages, they're 3-bedroom type units, so they will range anywhere from young families, seniors, empty nesters, that sort of thing. There will be an HOA, which is geared towards reducing maintenance and that sort of thing, which is becoming very popular. A lot of landscaping and buffering for things like that. So we worked with the town on all the site utilities to get the water and sewer and drainage at least designed to a point where it feels comfortable that it'll work and that it'll work within what the town would like to see. We've located all the drainage basins on the site, sized them correctly so that now we know how much of an impact those will have and what they'll look like. Those will remain private, so that the association will maintain those. We've changed the road layouts quite a bit to minimize the wetland disturbance. So what you see here in purple, it's very minimal wetland disturbance. We were able to configure roads and that sort of thing. And also adjacent to the two wetlands at the top of the page, we're going to create a larger wetland in that area to far and away mitigate any minor impacts that we have. So the impacts are below any kind of regulatory permit limits, that sort of thing. But in addition to that, we will be creating quite a bit more wetlands to mitigate that. As I said, there's a lot of landscaping for buffering and also, you know, for the general aesthetics of the subdivision. So we've given kind of a little palette of some of the types of trees and stuff that will be going. There'll also be a lot of native trees that have been asked for by the wetland consultant, which is great. And that is probably about it. I think we've kind of gone through it.
Right, thank you very much, and
You're
we've
welcome.
just got, I think we've seen this before, but it's great to have a review. Do people have questions here before we move on to anyone else who might want to speak in the public hearing?
No, I'd just like to thank Robert and Greg. You guys did a good job. You listened to us at every meeting, and the product that you're giving us shows from the very first time that, you know, we saw the original designs from a previous applicant, it just wasn't very nice. So you guys did a really sharp job. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I think that'll
Thank
be
you.
something we'll all be proud of when it's done. I really do.
Thanks. In terms of the
Absolutely.
the senior bonus, can you talk about who is, this is over 55?
50.
Are there any other, you know, stipulations?
No, 55 and over.
Okay.
I think it's 16 or 17 units are kind of, you know, set as a base for that. You know, it could end up being 90% seniors. It could end up being, you know, just at 16, 17.
I will ask one question because we
Sure.
have another senior complex on Violet Avenue. They had an issue with the school district if somebody was 55 and older and say they had to take care of their child at some point. They had 1 year for Violet Avenue that would pay for them to go to school there. They could only stay for up to 1 year. Did you guys have talks with the school district at all, or?
It's never come up.
You might want to just check with Violet
Okay.
Estates because, I mean, I don't think it'd be a problem because you already have other kids in there. It's not solely all seniors, but that's because that was a senior complex. That was an issue with the school district.
Yeah, and a lot of times those are because they get special tax incentives or breaks
Okay.
on that. I don't think this is.
But you'll
really
have
geared
children
for
in there,
that.
so it probably shouldn't be a problem, but just figured
Yeah.
I'd throw it out there so you know.
Yep.
Okay,
can do that.
thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, good. Any other questions?
Sure, thank you. Just one clarification. So your tier 1 open space and tier 3 senior housing. So then you refer to it base maximum of 48 units to 76 units. That's what I'm reading here on, you know, the resolution. So is it 48 or 76, or we don't know yet?
76 units. 76, it
Decided
actually,
on
when,
76.
yeah, when you do the formula, it can come out a little bit more than that, but that's kind of the number we set on.
I believe the zoning change, the new zone would allow 48 units, but then the incentives
Yeah.
get you up to 76.
But,
Is that
as I said, I could
right?
be reading it wrong.
We did the math a million times.
Right, okay, yeah, I think you prefer, right, as long as it fits in.
And
But
these,
but I do really like, I'm a open space proponent, and I
Mhm.
really like the 52% of the, parent parcel.
Yeah,
17 acres plus set aside for open space. So that would be part of your condo fee or your HOA fee, maintaining that. There'll be trails in there, some of it may be wetlands and et cetera.
correct. So, if I go back to, this plan right, oop, click too fast. This plan right here shows approximately all the land that is not part of a lot. And so that is all part of the HOA maintenance, in addition to, they may have lawn maintenance, driveway maintenance, that sort of thing, but this is all the land that will be common land on that site.
I see.
It's quite a bit.
Yes, thank you.
And the part to the left is the heavily wooded, part. There's part to the far west is also, but the vast majority of it, of that piece in the middle there, it's green, has already been torn out. That was, you know, kind of gutted a long time ago. So we're able to keep it away from.
Right, so upon completion, you're gonna have some mapped out trails and things that will be included.
Yeah, the trails are actually kind of shown, and they're pretty accurate, because we've gone through the grading, trying to
Okay.
find the most logical ones, but, and it'll connect to the county trail. We've kind of been talking to
Good.
them, and, we think we got that worked out.
Okay.
I have
Okay.
a quick question,
Thank you.
please.
Sure.
I see a, a red dotted line around that, it's not a sinkhole, but around that, little ditch.
Yep.
What's the reason for that red dotted line? Is that wetland?
That is the limit, no, that's the limits of disturbance.
Okay,
So as part of the SWIP, we had to outline the limits of grading that'll happen. That'll actually be a wet pond, so it'll always have water in it. It should be quite a nice feature, actually. It kind of, landscape architects kind of, made it look nicer than the engineers make it look, so. So that,
and because of that trail going around, and you said it's heavily wooded, then you wouldn't have to spend a lot of time or energy mowing all the time, right? It's not
Correct.
that kind of open space. It's
no, it's gonna be mainly left kind of wild. Some of the areas that we are disturbing, as you can see, it's very heavily landscaped. There's, so that long strip of green along between the two houses there is nothing of any significance there for trees, so that's all gonna be planted with evergreens. And that'll be kind of left sort of wild. Because you wanna try and maintain, with native species, you can kind of do that quite a bit more, reduces your cost, but also ends up looking more realistic than,
Right.
not that I don't like hydrangeas, but you get hydrangeas everywhere. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not something that's native. So, yeah.
And then thinking about, the safety of that trail, if it's that heavily wooded, who's responsible for making sure there's no limbs that would come down or could hurt somebody on the trail? Is
That's the HOA.
the HOA is in
Yeah.
charge of that? Okay.
Yeah.
And just to Councilwoman Laird's point, is this gonna be a dawn to dusk hiking thing, or is there gonna be some lighting there, or?
No, we're not planning on any lighting.
So it's
I
a
would
dawn
not, I would
to-
not encourage it.
Right, so
Yeah.
dawn to
Right.
dusk,
Yeah.
right, because of the
Dawn to
environment.
dusk, that's correct.
Yeah,
Right, okay,
yeah, it gets opened up a whole different.
right,
For safety issues, that's right.
Okay.
all right, very
Any
good.
other questions?
Yeah, so the undisturbed areas you're intending on keeping forever as open space? That's, okay, so they're gonna be restricted that way. Yeah, I also spoke to Peter Fanuelli from the planning board who voted against your secret declaration. And his concern was that there hadn't been a geologic survey, that there's a lot of stone and upcropping on there. So is that something you're gonna be doing, obviously, down the road when you start construction, to see what you're sitting on there?
Well,
So
we did
this-
do a study. They did peel apart some rock just to check to see what type of requirements on blasting or just peeling. But Greg, you can
Yeah.
speak to that as well.
Yeah, so I think he would have liked more. He
Yeah.
was concerned. We did do some, and I think enough to get confident that we shouldn't need to blast.
Okay, well,
And that's kind of a key point, now
Yeah, well,
it's a
that's,
big difference,
it's very expensive to blast.
very
Yeah,
expensive, so.
Right.
They did have, the geotech kind of look at the lights, rocks, if you look at them, they are fractured. I'm not gonna promise you that we don't get into a spot and all of a sudden, oh shoot, that we got some really solid rock and we gotta blast a little strip of it or stretch of it. But even with geotech, when you do a geotechnical analysis on like we did a manufacturing site, 26 acres, I mean, they poked
Yeah,
a dozen holes.
yeah,
Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, you're always having that potential of finding a surprise,
yeah.
so, I think we're confident in seeing some of the stuff that's out there that, good sized machines should be able to
Okay,
peel it up.
good. Yeah,
Peel it
his,
back, yep.
yeah, and his other concern obviously was drainage too, but it looks, I can see why he was concerned about drainage, because you do have some significant wetlands, but it seems like you've addressed them.
I think so. I think we really tried working very closely with your engineers and your wetland consultant. It was a lot of massaging roads, moving, and everybody kind of gave a little, maybe perfect world, you'd want something that's perfectly straight for a road, but we've got some twists and turns in there, which personally I like because it slows people down. It doesn't become a racetrack. And we were able to avoid, for the most part, any wetland impact. And then, I know we saw this area up there that's kind of, when you're out in the field, it looks kind of really, just useless. It's not a wetland, it's got, stuff growing in there you don't want anywhere. And we're looking at it like, you know what, we're gonna wanna clean it up. Why don't we just put, the creek kinda runs through it a little bit. There's some ditch there. Then we're gonna put a little weir in there. We're gonna make it so every time it rains, it ponds water up. We'll seed it with wetland seedlings. We'll clean up all the stuff that's there, and it should turn into a pretty nice feature, you know? I could definitely see something like that. It doesn't have a lot of big trees in it, but if you bird houses in there and that sort of thing, you know, all of a sudden you've got something that's very attractive as a nature type trail, you know?
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate the presentation.
You're welcome.
And we'll see if there's anyone else in the room. First of all, is there anyone in the room who wanted to speak on this public hearing? And then we'll see, I believe Doreen has her hand up to speak from Zoom. And also Georgette Martin. We might want to remove the presentation if you could, so that we can see who's got their hands up. But Doreen, did you want to speak first? Welcome. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So, the gentleman just said that they're creating wetland to mitigate impacts. And there is, according to the document, 1.34 acres of impact to aquatic resources. So I was wondering if there is a mechanism where they're going to be monitoring the wetland mitigation? Has that been set up?
Which I can answer.
We're doing the aquatic study, nothing has been, that's part of, what we're having our wetlands consultant do now. I believe, he's going to be, presenting that to the town.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
I don't.
so you are working with the town on some sort of monitoring for wetlands for the future?
Yeah, this is Mike Welty. I just want to, yes, thanks, Doreen. That's a good comment. We haven't yet done site plan, review and approval. So that level of detail we will work out at that point. But yeah, we would envision having our wetlands consultant, Aspen Environmental, be part of, that process through construction. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Georgette, welcome.
Hi. I was curious, when you're considering putting 76 units, residencies off of Inwood, and across the street from, on the other side of Inwood is a big, housing development with numerous, streets. I was wondering if you put any consideration on the course of the traffic. Are you gonna put in red lights or, cause it's gonna increase the traffic a bit.
We did do an analysis of the amount of traffic generated, and it was provided to town, and the town's traffic consultant reviewed that. It won't meet, any criteria to install a traffic signal. It's far, and although there is some extra traffic, it's far below that. And then the impacts were deemed to be, not severe enough to warrant any mitigation. So in general, a development like this, I can't remember what the numbers were, but in general, a development like this will generate far less than the 76 trips an hour, which would equate to roughly, 1 a minute, especially with the senior, with the senior component in there.
Yeah, we're trying to get away from installing the lights if we can, Georgia. We like the stop signs where possible.
Well, the stop signs work, but I'm thinking that 76 units is 152 extra cars, because most residents have 2 cars. I just feel it's gonna be a lot of traffic,
I think
but I guess we'll see, huh?
there is a traffic study that I think that is an issue that's gone to the planning board for
Yeah,
consideration.
again, so if you don't, I'll just jump in on that too.
Sure.
Yes, there was a traffic study, and as part of the seeker neg deck, that was one of the potential impacts that we evaluated, and it does, did not seem to have any significant impacts that were needed mitigation. And so it was looked at and the planning board felt it was satisfactory the way it is.
Yeah, the way they're entering, they have two ways coming out they can go. They can go right or left, and there's alternative streets, so you're not gonna overflow any one street with the traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else who wanted to speak as part of the public hearing? Okay, seeing none, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed, 7-0. Mike, do you want to go ahead and keep going with the resolution?
Sure, let's see, so we did the change of the zoning, whereas the planning board lead agency under seeker has reviewed the proposed plan, including the proposed zoning map amendment, requested density bonus described below. On January 16, 2025, it issued a determination of non-significance, negative declaration for this type 1 action, and whereas on January 16, 2025, the planning board voted to convey a neutral recommendation to town board for the proposed zoning map amendment, whereas a written recommendation dated February 27th was received from the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development, stating the adoption of the proposed zoning map amendment is a matter of local concern, and whereas the applicant's proposal seeks to utilize Tier 1 open space and Tier 3 senior housing incentives pursuant to 21076 of the zoning code to increase the allowable density of the proposed project from the base maximum of 48 units to 76 units in exchange for the permanent preservation of 17.519 acres, which is 52.11% of the parcel, and 33.62 acres as usable open space, and the designation of 16 of the 48 base maximum dwelling units of senior housing is defined in accordance with provisions 21076. Let's see here. Now therefore be it enacted, the town code, Poughkeepsie Code of the zoning designation tax parcel number 6163032180120000, located at 8189 Inwood Avenue, in the town of Poughkeepsie, consisting of approximately 33.6 acres, is hereby amended from residence single-family 2 acre to residence single-family 20,000 square foot R20. And be it further enacted, said local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with Secretary of State. Be it further enacted, the town board finds the proposed Tier 1 open space and Tier 3 senior housing density bonus be consistent with the purposes and criteria set forth in 21076, and further finds that the specific requirements of 21076I are or will be met, and the town hereby grants the requested initiative bonuses conditioned on the approval and filing of all required legal agreements to effectuate the provisions of 21076, subject to review and acceptance by the town attorney, planning board attorney, the director of municipal development, prior to the date the final plat map is signed by the chairman of the planning board. So moved.
Second. Okay, is there any discussion of the two actions we're taking here, which is to change the zoning and then to grant the density bonuses? Any discussion?
I think it's a very good project. It is gonna allow people that wanna sell their homes, so families can stay in the area and move into something else that's secure, where they don't have to do any work, is a viable solution for a lot of the seniors that wanna stay in the area. And we are providing housing for families, and, I welcome the project. I think it's a very good project. You guys have done a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We've
Thank
had-
you, everybody.
We've had a lot of a large number of rentals, and it's nice to see a project with the home ownership as the basis as well. Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then the resolution carries 7-0.
Thank you.
you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Rob.
All right, we move on to item number 5, which is a presentation by Stephen Tinkelman and Hudson River Housing with relation to the Westerly project and a proposed pilot. Welcome, thanks for being here. Good evening.
My name is Steve Tinkelman, Tinkelman Architecture. I'm also the managing member of Built Parcel 7, which is the applicant, I guess, here, or the developer for this effort. With me tonight is John Leister, the project architect, Tinkelman Architecture. Thank you for having us here tonight. We appreciate that. My letter to the board and to the supervisor was to request a pilot for this newly approved Westerly project, 43 Springside effort that we now have approved by the planning board, your planning board. We were last before you in June of 2024, And we want to continue that conversation, on this, on the matter of the pilot. Just to step back for a little bit of definition again on the project. The westerly building, which is the heart of this proposal, is a 20-unit structure. It's directly across the street from the new building that we just completed. We call it our tree house because it's set into the woods. And it is a mixture of 10 one-bedrooms and 10 two-bedroom units. There is also 43 Springside, which is an unimproved three-bedroom house in the front that is in disrepair and is going to be updated as part of this effort. The westerly is in the fourth phase of what we've been doing in the creation of the Van Wagner Place neighborhood. The neighborhood as it exists today couldn't have made it without your support through the years. And it goes noted how critical that's been. The project, the first three phases, we're the beneficiary of a pilot that was established about 10 years ago. And, it's run, 2/3 of its course, it extinguishes in about 5 years. When we're done with the phases that are in front of you, we'll have about 80 dwelling units and about 50,000 square feet of commercial space. This effort doesn't have any more commercial space. It's purely a residential effort. To date, all of our space is occupied, save for about 2,700 square feet in the new building that we're working on now to try to fill. What we learned was with the 44 project is how valuable having critical mass is in terms of it feeling like a neighborhood. With that effort, we built a new town square, which hopefully you've seen it. It was landscaped in the fall, and it'll be furnished and occupied fully, where not only can it be used by everyone that lives in the neighborhood, but it's open to the public. We also will have public events there, et cetera. But as part of building a neighborhood, it is a bit more complicated than just building buildings. We've been involved with, doing new sidewalks, new on-street parking. There's open facilities besides this town square, such as the dog park. There are other pieces that are included in this westerly project. Some of it's going to be determined by what we find with rock and what we can ultimately use for additional open space for the neighborhood. We also have made it as part of our credibility here, and our goal was to have not-for-profit organizations that are operating out of our neighborhood. And as you know, we have the Center for the Prevention of Child Abuse, the Community Foundation, amongst others that are Project More, that are occupying the spaces in our neighborhood. We're all proud of what they do and what they do for our community. The pilot request here is less complicated than it might have been a year ago in my mind. One is that the economic environment for building projects today is much more complicated, and it's much more complicated and uncertain every day because of whether we have tariffs or don't have tariffs. It's harder to pin down what the construction costs are. The labor issues are also complicated, and the idea here is that we're using local labor in building this. That's part of our agreement with, or would be part of the agreement here. The effort for building 44 Springside was very complicated, and this will be more complicated because of just the environment that we're dealing with right now. The goal here also is to do a little bit more of a modest finishing of these apartments than the last round. We really like the fact that we have diversity in the neighborhood. We have diversity in all of our buildings. The Hilltop and Center House that were built about 6 years ago They're relatively affordable, given what the market is for marketplace rents, and we're proud of that. One of our strategies is that we like the fact that we are building a neighborhood where people stay for a period of time, and one of the ways you do that is you take care of them. That's the paradigm that we insist upon, taking good care of our tenants and not raising rents, in an unreasonable way. And so I was gonna use the word recidivism, but that's not the right word. But the retention of our tenants has really been terrific, and we're kind of proud of that. There's some business points that are also worth talking about. This neighborhood probably generated $30,000 to $40,000 worth of taxes when we got started here, and we're up to about 300,000. Once 44 kicks in this year. That doesn't include this project here that at the end of the pilot will also be, an additional $100,000 or more. So we've built tax base here. We've built a neighborhood that we're proud of. That's, we have people that like living here, and one of the reasons they like living here is because the town of Poughkeepsie is a good place to be and a comfortable, stable place to be. So you'll ask the question likely that, will you build the project if you don't get the pilot? And I would say that it won't underwrite. And I'm sure you hear that a lot, but I can just tell you that if you look at the pro forma, the benefit in the first year, and we're asking for a 15-year pilot, which is shorter than what was given to Eastdale, which is shorter than was given to the Arlington. These are neighbors of ours. The pilot we're requesting is the same one that we modeled 10 years ago, which is a 15-year pilot. The difference between getting a pilot and not getting a pilot is about $50,000 a year in terms of your operating expenses. And given what the cost of money is today, which is 7 to 8%, and all that, those are significant dollars. The building requirements today, because we are building sustainable structures that are energy efficient, they're thoughtful, and I think hopefully you've seen that in our 44 project of recent. But so you're not trying to build the most least expensive units that you can build, regardless of what your rental structure is. You're trying to build stuff that is easy to maintain, it's thoughtful to maintain, and they're efficient. They're efficient to run, operate, and to live in there. Again, the last part of my presentation tonight is we are creating a sense of place here. And the sense of what we've done to date really changed in such a positive way with the opening of 44. And we're thinking that this will, again, contribute to, what we, hope is not our last project here. Thank you for the opportunity to, present this this descriptive part. The second part of the presentation here is about our willingness to propose providing 10% of the units as workforce housing.
Right, I see that Mary Ling is on Zoom now, just in case you were from Hudson River Housing, right? She is here, I saw her hand raised, so.
Thank you.
Didn't mean to interrupt, but.
So, we, when we originally designed the project and were in front of the town board, that was not a part of what we were proposing to build. It seems like a good idea. We like the diversity of it, and supporting, a richer housing stock is just a good community effort, when I think that should be part of all projects that are built. Subsequently, we've worked with Hudson River Housing, Mary Lang, who's on tonight. Thank you, Mary, for being here. We've worked on a program here, and I think that was part of the package that we submitted that outlines a letter of intent amongst ourselves. It isn't a formal document yet, but it's pretty clear about how this would work for 2 of the units. Hudson River Housing has agreed to be the operator of the program here for these 2 units. Mary, I guess if you wouldn't mind speaking a little bit about what we agreed to and how you might work with us on this?
Sure. Thank you, Steve, and thank you for the town board to have us here tonight. So you know, we work with municipalities all over the county on doing, you know, some, what's called inclusionary housing or affordable housing, workforce housing, zoning law. We're currently working with the town of Poughkeepsie for helping, assisting them in drafting a code for that. So we're always grateful when developers voluntarily, which is what's happening here, offer up some affordable housing units before, or workforce housing units before, you know, the code is in place. And so, you know, even 2 units of housing anywhere is so necessary in all the communities around Dutchess County and this part of the country, where affordable housing is just very hard to come by and workforce housing is very hard to come by. So the fact that we can have these 2 units relatively, you know, quickly, once we can get this through all of the approvals and start the construction, you know, we're not gonna operate the units, we will manage the units. Steve and his team will be property managing these units. So we'll just be working on the eligibility of the folks that are applying for the workforce housing, and the agreement that we have, that we've kind of hammered out together with the assistance of Michael Welty, is that 2 of these units will be 1-bedroom units that will be eligible units for people earning up to 120% of the area median income for Dutchess County. But the rents will be calculated based on a household that is earning up to 80% of the area median income. So, you know, the rents are gonna work out to be about $1,700 to $1,800. But again, they'll be eligible for folks up to 120%, so that we'll have enough room there to have a pool of eligible candidates that will be paying, you know, 30% or less of their household income towards their rent. So again, really necessary and needed around Dutchess County and the Northeast. So we're real happy about this, and I think we put together a good program that can have 2 good units for workforce housing. So people that are in the workforce, but just are having a hard time affording their rent and are rent burdened at this point.
Thank you very much.
One of the other commitments on these units is that they are going to be designed as similarly to their other units, so that you can't tell whether it's this particular, you know, they're floating units for that reason as well. So, I mean,
Okay.
it's a even Steven design approach.
Okay. Thank you very much. So are you ready? We're ready for questions?
Sure. Well, what would the rents be on the other apartments in general? You don't have to be specific, but I guess.
I would say that the 1-bedrooms are in the range of 2,000. The 2-bedrooms are maybe 1,800 to 2,000. The 2-bedrooms are probably 2,500, in that range.
Now, will you be taking Section 8 vouchers for these apartments, or no?
We haven't taken any of the Section 8 vouchers in the neighborhood here.
So, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, the other, just a couple of other things with the Hudson River housing rents that Mary's talking about. As part of that program also includes an allowance for, you know, their energy costs.
So, I remember when you first came in for the first pilot, there was a lot of buildings over there that were in very poor condition. You did redevelop the whole neighborhood, and it looks great. And this building is, you know, everything you've built has been beautiful in this neighborhood. Problem that I have is, I know it's expensive to build, but you're building something that you're still gonna be making a profit on. The other pilot's coming off soon. Yes, we are getting some revenue, but we're not, a pilot, it means somebody else is picking up the tab on it. For some of the other properties that we've done project pilots on, Raymond Avenue, I think we're definitely doing one for the Fairview Business Park. We did one for you before, and I can't think of another one off the top of my head, but those properties were non-existent for years, okay? When you built that first one, I remember asking you, are you gonna come back in a number of years and ask for another pilot? And you said no. You're building a beautiful project. You are making money on this, and the taxpayer shouldn't, we shouldn't be subsidizing again, and only 2 apartments? I might be able to see some wiggle room, if you were giving more apartments, like maybe half. But 2 apartments out of what you're doing doesn't seem like a lot. And I'm not discrediting it, I know you do mean well. But if you looked at the previous applicant, they're asking for senior housing credit, they're getting credits without coming in and asking for a pilot. Have you given any consideration to making some of these seniors and getting a benefit like that? I mean, that last applicant really did a good job, went out of their way to make their zoning work for them, so they didn't get a pilot and put it all on the taxpayer. Just, just pointing it out.
So, right, I don't know if we wanna, how much we wanna, do questions and answers, or make sure, get other people's questions, or, discussion. The board ultimately will have to discuss among ourselves, but that's a starting point. Maybe I might open it and see if there's other board members who would like to
Maybe just some
speak.
clarification, sir, for me that could help me, okay?
Sure.
So you're saying on your March 6th letter, your goal is 2 one-bedroom workforce housing units?
Correct.
Okay, but I thought I heard you say 10%.
10% of the units, there are 20 units, so that 10% of that would be
So
2
there's only
units
20 units throughout the whole?
in this new property, yes.
Okay, that
Mhm.
clarifies. So also with that, so what is the 76 units? No, I got the wrong one. You said,
You're looking at Inwood.
I'm looking at the wrong one here, okay. So you're proposing, 2 one-bedroom units, and then you're having, 50,000 square feet of commercial space?
That's already been constructed through the first 3 phases.
Okay, and you're charging rent for that, right, as far as that goes?
Correct.
Okay. Not-for-profits that you bring in, will they be a discount for tax exempt entities that come into the commercial space?
There's no exemption for them in terms of what we pay per square foot, so, we are, renting space at a very reasonable rent for these, because
Okay.
that's part of our mission, but there is no loss to the town by having them there, right?
So with the 10%, and I think the numbers that you're thinking about is 300,000 in taxes
That-
after the abatement, or after the pilot.
That's what the
And then-
town is or that's what the taxes are currently that we're paying here. I think maybe to Mr. Siffone's question, which is a good one, is, you've had these properties for 10 years or so,
Right.
and that, and the neighborhood is doing well and all that, and what's the benefit of the pilot then? And I think that's exactly the point, is that we have, through inflationary economics, the world has changed, and the money that we borrowed was money from 10 years ago. And so as the pilot runs out, because we're probably paying, 75% in the current pilot right now, in a couple of years, we'll be paying 100%. And so you're really seeding the future by allowing something when we built units 10 years ago, they were half the cost, or 60% less than what they cost today. So what you're doing is you're seeding the future with stability, and you're moving more people in. It's helping make the neighborhood better. It's bringing people into shop down into the Arlington Business District. It's doing a lot of things. We were approved by the school district because they liked it. They felt it was good for the school district. But I think there's some really good basic economics to support how, if the property currently is only paying $3,000 or $4,000 in taxes, and at the end of the pilot, it'll pay over $100,000 in taxes. This is good business for the town. Plus, we're bringing people here. Plus, we're creating construction jobs, and there's a litany of benefits to it. So I say what you're doing is not necessarily progressive, but it's just really good business. And I think our track record on the first 3 phases demonstrate that. One last point on it is, when we proposed the pilot, and again, I'm sorry if it was not 10 years ago, but it was 9 or
You're close.
11. In the application that was before you and then was approved by the Dutchess County IDA, we were projecting a certain number of units to be built in the neighborhood. And it turned out in the first 3 phases that the number of units are actually less than what we had anticipated in the original pilot. So now with this westerly building, adding the 20 units, we're about where we were in that first projection of square footage and dwelling units and all that, so,
Okay.
you know.
Well, I want to thank you for bringing me to the $100,000. That's what I was trying to get you at, so thank you for
Sure.
clarifying that, thank you.
Could I ask a couple of questions?
Please.
My first one is about the nature of the pilot. 15 years is a deviated pilot, right? And this is for what I've seen is pilots for mixed use, and this is a housing, residential only project, which is, I don't see a need to change it. The residential is what we need, but I'm just wondering what the mechanisms are for a deviated pilot from the Dutchess IDA for a project that is entirely residential.
Good question. The Dutchess County IDA requires approval by your board. And with the approval of the board, they can approve it. So it's really your decision in that regard.
Okay.
They can approve a pilot without your opining in a positive way if it was a 10-year pilot.
Right.
But-
So what we would be, the difference for this board is that it's a deviated pilot, it's 15 rather than 10 years, and therefore requires town board approval.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And the second question is, how many 2-bedrooms and how many 1-bedrooms? And they're all 1 or 2?
Yes, it's 50-50. Yeah.
So half 2-bedrooms and half 1-bedrooms?
Correct, yeah.
And if I could ask a question to Mary from Hudson River Housing, can you talk about the landscape of the folks who are most in need of workforce housing? And I noticed that there are 2 1-bedrooms here for those folks. If you could talk about, what you're seeing in terms of the affordable and workforce housing needs.
Sure. The workforce housing, certainly there's a need for affordable housing, which is a little lower bracket, but there's also a great need for workforce housing. So we're talking about nurses and police officers and first responders and school teachers and, the clerk at the grocery store, people that are earning a living, working full-time, they just, the wages are not pacing with housing costs, so it's very important that any housing that's built is addressing the need for workforce housing. So, I think these units are gonna have a long waiting list, and I look forward to the town of, adopting a new zoning code so we can have more of these units,
Right,
because. Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It does seem like we're in a transitional phase here between, as we move toward inclusionary zoning that would be for, as a general rule. These are nurses and firefighters and so forth who they're not gonna be able to have children in these 1-bedroom units, right? Unless it's gonna be pretty cramped. So I'm assuming we're looking at either younger or empty nest folks or singles in 1-bedrooms like this. One of my big concerns is family housing and family for parents with children. And so I'm kind of pondering that as we think about 1-bedrooms. But you see a lot of demand for both, or particularly for 1-bedroom type units?
I do see the most demand for 1-bedroom type units, and I think in a development of this size, it's a smaller development at 20 units. The best way you can address it is with these 2 1-bedroom units, to have either, seniors, a senior married couple that, simply doesn't want to maintain a home anymore, so would be happy to move into a rental, or people just starting out in the workforce that, are single, or a mother and a 1 child. Normally these units are looked at as stepping stones of, this is where we get you all ready to go. If you're joining the workforce and graduating from college or whatever, you want to stay in the town of Poughkeepsie because this is where you were raised, or at the other end of that spectrum, you've lived here your whole life and it's just not wanting to mow the lawn and shovel the driveway anymore. So this is also a good option for seniors, but you know, we can't address everything with one development. That's why the adoption of the zoning code would be great, because we can attract bigger developments with more diverse unit sizes. But just with this project, you know, it's one and twos, so it seemed like the way to go.
Okay, thank you. And I agree with you. I want to move toward inclusionary zoning as fast as we can. But I know that it's complicated and it's going to take a little while. But this is a stair step for us in, you know, working with Hudson River Housing to understand how that kind of housing will be, you know, monitored and administered. Is any other board members who have questions?
No, you just brought up a point, maybe I can get another clarification. So on your household size, you're indicating here, 3 people
Right.
in the one bedroom. So that'll be in the lease, I guess, lease agreement? And
That's in the underwriting that Hudson River Housing will require here. And that was a discussion that Michael Welty and Mary and myself had, which is we didn't really want to have too many people, particularly adults, living in a one-bedroom apartment, because that isn't fair to your neighbor.
So my question is, we'll set it up so that it'll supersede any New York State requirements or any New York State, you know, tenants' rights?
Boy, that's a really good question. I don't
Well,
know.
it's not gonna, it doesn't override any building code, right? So I believe in the town of Poughkeepsie, in a one-bedroom, 3 adults are allowed. And the calculations are actually going to be based on 1.5 people. Just so you understand
Yeah,
that.
but my question was regarding the New York State tenants' rights, you know, legislation, so, and I'm not gonna get into that now, but will what we do supersede?
I
New York
would
State
think that
tenants'
the
rights?
New York State law, I'd have to check on that, but I think.
Okay.
you know,
I don't think anything we can do is going to supersede state
Yeah,
law
yeah.
on tenant.
You understand where I'm leading, right? Because that, the New York State tenant law says something different than 3 people for one bedroom.
Actually,
Well, that's interesting.
this-
We'll have to
Yeah,
pursue
so
that, because we don't
can
want to
ch- we
do
can
that.
check, we don't have to debate it here, we can check that
Yeah.
out, but.
Okay.
Can I just
Right,
ask
so-
one question real quick? Sorry, since it's right by my house. You said something about a town square that you'd recently built. Where is that, Steve? Like a little area?
In the front of, there's a plaza in front of the new building.
Okay,
that-
I just haven't been by there lately. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a presentation and an initial discussion tonight. There's nothing for a vote tonight. This is for discussion. I think the board is gonna need to weigh, you know, the question of the pilot and public benefit. I would say that I am very much concerned that any pilot that we give out have a substantial public benefit. We've had a good, clear presentation here of how Hudson River Housing and Mr. Tenkelman see that benefit, and so we're gonna just need to wrestle among ourselves with, you know, what we feel is, you know, kind of appropriate in terms of, you know, pilot and housing and what the public benefit of that is. Ann?
yeah, I've just got a quick question too. Now, your previous pilot was on that first building you did, in the back with the retail on the bottom. Was that where that pilot was for?
The first pilot started at 25 Van Wagner, which is on the corner across from Shrek, and that's where we moved our office into
Okay, so that
originally.
was the first pilot.
Yeah.
Then did you have another pilot after that?
So it was really one pilot agreement that covered the 25 Van Wagner.
Right.
It covered the properties across the street.
Right.
When Neil Wilson was here
Yeah.
prior to Michael Welty, we did a zone change on that. There were some derelict buildings
Yeah.
there. We took them down. Then the third one was the new building. And
Okay.
so all in all, in the neighborhood, we've repurposed about 10 buildings in that
Yeah.
neighborhood. So it's a combination of new and old stuff. One last point, if you don't mind, is when we first started designing this building, the ordinance didn't require any affordable housing component. And when we designed it, you know, we had designed it as a complete market rate project. In order to be really effective at doing some of the initiatives we're talking about here, you really need to have that in your pipeline, in your head as you're designing something, because some of the configurations might be different. For example, these units are very large, because one of our thoughts was we want people, because the paradigm shifting of living in ownership environment or our rental environment is changed. And we want to create environments where people stay for a long time because they're big enough to grow and to have their stuff and all that. But I really like the direction that you're going with in terms of the affordable housing pieces to it. And the fact that you're now putting law together, knowing that right from the jump of it allows you as a designer to really create really appropriate stuff that targets that and also allows an understanding of economics so these things can happen and be built and all that. We appreciate your support on this. We've been working on this for a long, long time, and I know that the pilots are not the most popular thing to be asking for here, but without it, this neighborhood never would have happened. And, you know, and I, as I started out saying, I think in some funny ways you need it more today just because of how complicated it is. And when you talk about making money, I'm glad to show you the pro forma. You'd kind of say, well, why are you doing this? And it's because you're building something. You're building something for as a whole neighborhood, and it's a whole set piece that is generational, and that's really what we're trying to do. So this last piece is complicated, but what it really means to the ultimate success here, I think, is meaningful.
So one last question is, can you talk about the expiration of the affordability, the workforce housing? How long these units would be workforce?
What we've
The
proposed,
length of the pilot, right?
Right, so when the pilot runs out, they're no longer workforce housing?
that's what's
Well, I
currently
believe
proposed.
that's the agreement, but Steve has expressed that he may extend it beyond the pilot.
That's one of the things the board can consider also is how long this would be maintained as workforce housing. And also, if we are going to adopt inclusionary zoning, then, you know, how does that fit in with our long-term vision of what inclusionary zoning, you know, how long the affordability requirements are in place? So that's something else for the board to think about. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, I really appreciate it.
We have questions on
Yeah,
that.
Doreen, she mentioned before that we.
This is not a public hearing.
But
So we forgot
we've
to
let
open
people
we
speak
forgot
to-
to open for
we've let
public
people
comment
speak-
after the public.
We let people speak last week when it wasn't a public hearing. I like to hear what people have to say.
Well, how many
Wait,
questions do we have?
wait,
Two?
Stop, this is a regular item on the agenda.
Right.
Right, we forgot to have the agenda stuff.
I have not reviewed the whole agenda beforehand, and we did not do 3 minutes beforehand, did we, because we switched everything
it up
around and did the
real
officers first, and then the public hearings, we did not offer 3 minutes. So I'm happy to offer that 3 minutes now, we can open it up for all items or just for this item. Doreen, did you want to speak?
Yes, I had asked, thank you, because I believe that you forgot to open for public comment as you
Yep,
usually do.
sorry, we moved everything around at the beginning, and I messed that up, so.
Two quick comments. One was on, well, I'll do this one first, I guess. So, yeah, I have an issue with the fact that the workforce housing apartments will only last as long as a property tax exemption, the pilot. I mean, so for the tax exemption to go away after the pilot to go away after 15 years, and then have the workforce housing apartments going away, personally, I think that's unacceptable. And the applicant has received previous pilots from the town, and to the best of my knowledge, there was no workforce housing even provided for that. So, and then Mr. Tinkleman had just said that this is a good community effort to add housing, affordable housing, and that it should be part of all housing. Well, how can you have that feeling and then say, oh, by the way, as soon as my tax break is up, you're not going to be getting any more affordable housing apartments? I just think that's unacceptable. And I also think that only 2 apartments is also unacceptable. So I think it should be more than that, and it definitely should not be a limit. I mean, come on. As long as he's getting his tax break, then he'll give you an apartment, affordable apartment or workforce apartment, whatever you want to call it. I just think that's unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Is there anybody else who wants to speak? I think it would be better to open on any issue that remains on the agenda because we missed that at the beginning of the meeting. Is there anyone who wants to speak now on any other items, on any other item on the agenda? Both either in the room or online? Going once, going twice. Okay, then I won't go through the motions of, we'll just keep on with the agenda now. I just wanted to make sure we did have room to hit. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, we have another presentation from the Town Controller, Manal Patel, who's gonna come and walk through, the 2024 financials, which have been posted online, and the board also has, for each of the funds, a review, an overview sheet, and then the details. So, welcome, thank you so much for being here.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I would like to begin by outlining what is included in the package.
Can you move the mic so that
I can hear you.
we, there you
Can you
go.
hear me now?
Put it,
A little closer? You have to be fairly close to the mic to
Maybe your
for the
chair.
system to pick it up so that you'll be recorded.
Sorry,
That's okay.
I'm short, so.
That's,
You're a light talker.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
So I would like to begin by outlining what is included in the package. The first two pages provides a summary in Excel format detailing expenses and revenues by charge code, which is also organized by the fund. Following the summary, I have included a detailed budget to actual report categorized by department and by fund. So now let me give you a brief overview of the government funds that town focuses on, which provides insight into near-term inflows, outflows, and the balances of spendable resources. General fund, which is also known as Townwide Fund A, the primary operating fund of the town, accounting for general government financial resources, except for those required to be recorded in other funds. General Fund, Part Town B. This fund accounts for revenue and expenditures related to services provided outside the village of Wappinger Falls, as the village operates certain departments independently, such as police department, planning, and zoning. Highway Fund, used for recording revenues and expenditure related to repair and maintenance of town roads. Water Fund, covers the operation and maintenance of townwide water district. Sewer Fund accounts for operations and maintenance of various sewer districts within the town. So my presentation doesn't include line-by-line items. I'm just going to speak about the key highlights within all 5 funds, and I'm going to round it up to nearest thousands, which is much more easier to talk about. Interest income, we budgeted on all 4 funds cumulative, $1,041,000. And actual interest earnings for 2024 was $1,753,000. That resulted in a positive variance of $712,000. Medical insurance. This was the hot topic throughout the year because of the high insurance excels here. We budgeted $6,629,000. The actual cost was $6,940,000. So there was a shortfall of $311,000 for medical expenses. Sales tax revenue, we budgeted $3.5 million. And actual sales tax revenue was $4,235,000, which created a surplus of $735,000. New York State mortgage tax. So this particular, in 2024, it was budgeted for $1,050,000. After first 3 quarters of revenue is already received, which total to $730,000. We have $230,000, which will be received in month of March or beginning of April, which will result in projected shortfall of like $90,000. One good thing is water and sewer rents. last year, end of the year, in December of, I think, 2023, sewer rent increased from $2.50 to $3. And that generated additional revenue. Portion of these funds we will be allocating to reserve for future capital improvements, and this will benefit residents in the long term, or any capital projects that we invest in. The overall financial performance for fiscal year ending 2024, we appropriated $1,735,000 to balance the budget. However, I'm pleased to inform that town did not utilize any of these funds to balance the budget. And this is due to conservative approach to revenue projections. I'm not taking a credit for that because that was done by my previous predecessors, but I'm taking a credit for all of the department heads who carefully manage their expenses. And it gave us a very strong fiscal position. As a result, we successfully navigated unexpected challenges, which include legal settlement, a cyber incident, and repairs and maintenance of certain towns' capital asset. This is it for me. Thank you so much.
Wait, you gotta have a couple questions, you can't just get up and leave.
Right, she's
I'm not leaving. I'm
all right.
done with my presentation.
Okay.
Oh, all right, well, I thought you were just gonna scoot off, say, I'm done, see you later,
If you
bye.
want me to, I can do that.
No, no.
Not
That
yet,
would be easier for me.
not yet.
I just have a couple questions for
Go
you.
ahead, please.
What's our current credit rating, do you know?
We are still at AAA with, our credit rating has not changed.
Okay, and then our CD rates as of today, do you happen to know what we're generating for income?
I am not putting anything in CD. I have put, for 2 months, short-term CD at 4.25% with TD Bank, but night class is giving me 4.75%, 4.75%, so I have moved almost $30 million in that.
And do you happen to have a general idea what our fund balance is as of today?
Fund balance, no, you are talking about equity.
Yeah.
No, I am not aware of the equity because there will be still certain adjustment that needs to be done
Thank you.
for accruals and receivables.
We agreed that this kind of thorough presentation is very helpful and that we do it quarterly. So for the first quarter of 2025, we would do that in April after the first quarter is over. And then, do this quarterly so that we're tracking the budget through the year. So we'll be talking about the first quarter of 2025 in, I think, the second meeting in April, or the second voting meeting in April.
So I would like to suggest that we modify the budget throughout the year because I have seen that in other towns where we have a lot of revenue in certain things. We can modify it to use it to other expenses. This is something that we need to look into as a town board.
Yes.
And I will really appreciate your support in that.
We should definitely be doing that. I appreciate that. Other questions?
Yeah, I just had a question about the 2023 financial report. When will that be finalized?
2023 is already finalized. The audit report is already, we already received the audit report, 2023. Are you talking about 2024 or?
Yes, I'm sorry, 2024.
You mean the annual financial
Sorry,
report with the state?
No,
or
audited
the
report.
Yes,
for
the
2024.
annual financial report we finalized for 2023. It has been finalized?
2023, we are still working on it. There are some capital improvements, that service fund that I need some adjustments that needs to be made. This is the first year I'm going to report on AFR, so I need some guidance. So I'm using RBT to help me out in that, but that's the only source I have so far.
Okay, so that was my next question about the 2024 audit with RBT. When will that begin?
Engagement letters are already signed. It's already given to them. We are working on the confirmations right now. As soon as we close our 2024, it's closed, but we need to just tweak some numbers. Revenues, that is like $230,000 receivable that we haven't received yet. So those adjusting entry needs to be made.
Oh, yeah, that's the New York State mortgage you were talking
Yes.
about.
Still waiting on the county for the mortgage tax, right?
Yes,
But we've already approved the auditors, so we're able to kind of move forward.
yes.
But no, this is a really good report, and the fact that we didn't touch any of the fund balance to make this work is really impressive.
given that we faced an unexpected $400,000 legal judgment that was left over from the 80s, and we had the Excelsior challenge, and we knew we had, that health insurance had been under budgeted, and we had the cyber attack, and we needed to make some upgrades to cyber attack. I did not expect to end the year without tapping fund balance, and I want to thank Manal for her work, which I think had a big role, and Manal is right, the department heads also worked really, really hard. The other department heads as well, you're also a department head, but all the department heads worked very hard. Are there other questions people wanted to ask? I had a couple of things I wanted to say, but I want to wait to the end.
I just quickly want to say, if I may, that I love this, for each fund, the 2-page summary was very, very helpful to me, because you can see it all laid out, and then if you have questions, well, because I'm on the finance committee, I ask you, because I would be hard pressed to figure it out, but you have all the background information attached to it, so thank you for putting all this together, it was really helpful.
Anybody else have questions?
Same sentiments. Thank you so much for a clear presentation. Thank you.
I just wanted to, perhaps particularly for the finance committee, flag a few things. First, I very much endorse and have been working with Minal on this suggestion that we create reserve funds. It's something we've spoken about since Minal and I first got here, and we're now in a position to understand how we came out in ~24. The town has never set up reserves specifically for capital projects in water and sewer. That clearly makes sense, and I'd like to ask the finance committee to maybe give some thought to reserve funds, how we set those up, what they look like. We also have never had a capital plan. We urgently need a capital plan. The town has way too complex set of operations and water and wastewater systems to not be anticipating in advance what we're gonna end up needing to pay. That includes everything from, I was talking with Chief Cavalier today about, radio and various other things, as well as trucks, cars, buildings, the whole works. So I think as we move in the next few months to thinking about the police courts facility and what path we're taking on that relocation, and before we get to budget season, that we should be really working on the capital plan, and I'm gonna ask the finance committee to work a little bit on that as well. I just wanted to say a couple of last things. Which is that in addition to the work that she's done on all of this, Minal has been here many, many hours on weekends and long nights and things like that, and has found a few things that I think are important to talk about publicly. First of all, she found that we were not billing the CIA for sewer, and so she reinstated and got back pay from the CIA with help from the legal department and everything, so that we are now billing properly for the CIA for its use of sewer. We also found, again, in cooperation with legal, that for 20 years, our contract with sewer for IBM had not been calculated properly. There's a base fee of $145,000, and CPI, consumer price, inflation is supposed to be added to that. That was never compounded. So over 20 years, the base fee was $145,000, and like 1% was added one year, and then we went back to $145,000 and 2% was added the next year. It was a failure of calculation on IBM's part, but the town had not caught that. We're getting ready to enter a new 20-year contract, and so we, with Trevor Reddle's help, they have calculated, gone all the way back and calculated what CPI should have been, how it should have been compounded, and what the appropriate base fee should be for the upcoming contract. The cost of that to the town over the past 20 years was likely over $500,000 in revenue that the town did not receive. So Minal, with incredible care, has been finding things like this, and we've been working through contracts and checking on these kinds of things. She's also been fighting IRS fines, many tens of thousands of IRS fines for late filing of W-2s and other things of that sort. I don't say this to complain about anybody in the past, but to raise an issue also for the board and for the personnel committee, which is about staffing levels. And it's an issue that I'm wrestling with the supervisor, is where are you being efficient in terms of making sure that you don't have too many staff in a department, and that you're running as efficiently as you possibly can, and where are you perhaps being penny wise and pound foolish if a department is understaffed and it's unable to review a contract for 20 years and the town loses $500,000? So I think that there's some questions for us to really think about there in terms of how we're staffing. The comptroller's office does an unbelievable amount of work. The complexity of the town and the joint water project and the tri-muni and grants, and there's a lot there. So I think that's those are things we're thinking about, but I wanted to just share that. And more in the finance committee that we're gonna send along some information, some things to think about in terms of the capital plan and planning and reserve funds, which I think we could do some useful things. And Trevor's been working on that as well. Okay, anybody else have questions?
Well, based on what you just said, did we fix the IBM compounding issue on the
working
contract?
on it.
Oh,
We're working on it.
Okay.
Yep. This is a 20-year problem, so we're in conversation with IBM.
So the concept, it was like a, COLA, it should have been allocated as a COLA, but
It should have been
concept, but,
compounded every
right,
year,
but it
right.
Right.
wasn't, so you just took the COLA increase, or the percentage increase,
And applied it
and brought
to
it
the
back to
first
the
number.
base, yeah. Well,
Right.
That's kind of cool.
It's a little problem with compounding and,
Yeah.
compounding over time.
Cool for them.
So-
Yeah, just to say, Supervisor, on the reserve funding, as you know, my views on that, I'm generally not in favor of that, however, I am when it comes to capital. Capital and infrastructure. So we can, because that's very necessary, and we can reserve it for those purposes. That would be a very good discussion, so thank you for bringing that up.
It's taken well over a year for me to even begin to wrap my head around the complexity of the water and sewer system in this town. Holy cow. And it was all built in the 60s and 70s, and so a lot of it's coming due, and so we face a lot of challenges around that. And one of the things, and Trevor can speak to this as well, we're discovering is that some grants and congressional appropriations, earmark type things, people want stuff that's shovel-ready. So one of the things we might be able to do with some of our own reserve funds would be to do the engineering part of projects and have prioritize, make clear what's most urgent, and go ahead and get the engineering piece done so that then, when you apply for a grant, you're in a stronger position if you say, we've got the drawings done, you give us this money, we'll get it started. Right. And we have some stuff that we do need to get started. So there's some ways I think we could use that reserve fund effectively to bring in additional funding as well.
Okay.
So.
This is just a comment in general. I'm very surprised that all the state funding and the WIA grants and all that don't require municipalities to have a 5-year capital plan. I'm shocked that they don't see, well, have you figured out when that was gonna fall apart? Because if it's 40, 50 years old, you'd think that all municipalities should have a capital fund, and I'm just saying that as a comment. It's surprising that they wouldn't require that as part of the.
Well, there's a larger conversation there for later, but we are finding also that we have major infrastructure needs, but we lose out from grants we lose out in state grants to communities that have just completely let their systems go or have had no money at all. And so we often hear, this is a great project, you should definitely do this, but we only have X amount of money and we've got to give it to these 3 towns that are disposing raw sewage directly into bodies of water, right? And so there is a conversation going on about creating more of a regular funding stream from the state to help municipalities deal with some of these costs, because they're significant, and they just need a larger stream of revenue in. If they, because, obviously they really don't, I understand why they're prioritizing, towns that really are in a really bad way, with their systems, but there is something of a frustration, around, ours being less, we just get bumped down the list a little bit. Okay, anybody else?
Can I just note that whoever's working on the reserve funds, there's a really good publication from the Office of the State Controller that goes over general municipal law allows certain types of funds. So it's good to have that background so you know the context of what's permissible.
It's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll send that to the Finance Committee.
Yep.
It would be great for next month's meeting. Anyone else? Thank you so much. Really wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Minnow.
Appreciate
That
it.
wasn't so bad, was it?
Sorry.
No, it was wonderful. It was, well, very, very good, and we'll see you again in April or whenever something else comes up. Right, in the meantime. Okay, I believe that
That's number
Board
7.
member Sharp gets to go to the field agreement with the Town of Poughkeepsie Soccer Club.
So the town board of the town of Poughkeepsie authorizes the supervisor to execute a fields and concession stand license agreement extension between the town of Poughkeepsie and the town of Poughkeepsie Soccer Club in substantially the form presented. So moved.
Second. Okay, any discussion?
When do you have to have this signed and back returned to you to take effect?
I think that I can sign it tomorrow and we can get it up
They're
and
starting
going.
Because
this
soccer
weekend.
starts,
Yes, this
no,
weekend.
this weekend.
This weekend, yep,
So
I'll be
you-
here
it
tomorrow,
has
I'll
to
be
be
signing this.
signed by
Yep,
Friday then.
exactly, yep.
And this is actually, the final version is just a touch different. This has gone back and forth a lot of times.
Okay,
Well, the
all
only-
right.
It's
the
very
only-
close to this.
The only question I had is we were in, meeting with Nate. We were talking about use of some areas of the field. So that may not be part of this agreement, but is that an understanding that we have with the, so if there's a flooding area, they don't
Yes.
use that field?
That's in there.
That's
Yep.
in here?
Yep.
Okay, I
Yep.
haven't read it all.
Yep.
Okay.
I think
I'll
Nate
look
and
at
the
it.
soccer club talked at length and
Right.
waged agreement that meets everybody's needs, which is a
Okay.
really good thing, so.
Okay.
We already have baseball and softball, so this is the last one and we're set to go.
Very good.
So,
Thank you.
we agreed also that the soccer club will pay for their own dumpsters and for, porta-johns for special events like the Columbus Day, tournament and the Red Bulls and a couple other things.
I was surprised though, after my conversation with Nate though, that we're still lining the fields because soccer bought a liner device last year. I thought they were gonna do it all. I mean, that would have been a big
Well,
win
We're
for us not to
using
line it.
their, well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I spoke to him today too, and he said, we have a surplus, we have a supply of paint they wanna use up.
Okay,
So they're gonna do the initial lining with the computer,
okay.
and then we're gonna follow, and then eventually, it says over time, the lines get a little wobbly and stuff, then they're gonna bring out the computer-generated one and do it again.
Right,
All
we're
right.
gonna, yeah, we're this year doing some kind of complex thing where we're using their robot and then also using up our supply of paint, because we bought a lot of paint and we're using that, and
Yeah.
it got,
Okay.
I'm trusting that Nate and the soccer club are on a Saturday morning gonna know who knows,
Yeah, 'cause
they're
that was
gonna
our-
know who does
That was
what.
our biggest hardship last year,
Yeah.
was lining the fields.
Yep, yep.
Did we vote on this? Did we?
No.
No, not yet, are we ready?
You didn't miss it yet.
All right, okay, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Resolution carries 7-0, I can sign it tomorrow and they can get out there and play soccer, okay. Ann?
Be it resolved, the town board of the town of Poughkeepsie does hereby authorize the supervisor on behalf of the town of Poughkeepsie to execute a contract agreement between Poughkeepsie Joint Water Board and TMB Engineering and Landscape Architecture, PC, to provide general engineering services to the Joint Water Board on terms acceptable to the town supervisor and the attorney of the town, in substantially the form annexed, so moved.
Second. All right, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries 7-0. Okay, I think it comes to me, that, the, Arlington Business Improvement District, their bylaws state that the town of Poughkeepsie appoints 2 members to the board of directors, and be it resolved that the board appoints Councilwoman Ann Shershin and Supervisor Rebecca Edwards continue to serve, which appointments are for the period ending December 31st, 2025. So moved.
Second.
For some reason, these come up in the middle of the year. I don't know if it's because the bid was originally formed in June or something like that, but we're trying to regularize this, because this should really be part of our reorg
Yeah,
meeting,
reorg.
right?
It should be.
Is
but-
this a yearly appointment?
It is annual, and we should be doing it in January, but for some reason, it's always come up in June, so or later. So we'll try to get it in, we're ending the appointments in December so that we can then,
Okay.
it can be part of the reorg in January.
Am I right to assume that Ann's on it because
It's actually
Mostly in
part,
the
no,
sixth
it's
ward.
actually part of the state code that defines what a bid is they say that the council person from the district has
Yes,
to be
right,
on it.
okay.
Right.
And then it's the supervisor, or the supervisor can designate someone
Sure.
to be in his or her place.
The chief financial officer is supposed to be, the person who serves. I tried to persuade, the controller that she's the chief financial officer, but it's actually not the case. I think by law, supposed to
You
serve.
also live closer, so that's better.
I do,
Can I have
it's
one
true.
more question about the bid? Is the bid looking to expand? I know it's been talked about the zone.
It's been discussed at a recent meeting.
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
requires, in fact, someone, on that call offered to work with the bid on expansion if they would like to expand. There seems to be ambivalence.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends, part of the problem is, if we increase the area, the people we add in have to pay into it. So
Yes.
that's kind of tricky, because not everybody, because at one point Tinkelman was interested in joining, but I'm
Right.
not so sure.
And the bid ends at the Arlington, or does it go, it goes into, it crosses over the arterial and goes over to Main Street,
Oh,
right?
yeah, no, it's both sides of Main Street.
Both sides of Main Street, right?
Both
But it
sides of-
doesn't cross the other arterial.
No,
Right.
that's where the
And
Tinkelman piece
Raymond's
would
on
come
it.
in.
Main Street's
Raymond's
on
on-
it, Raymond.
Raymond's on it, both sides of Raymond are on it. It doesn't go much further that way, and then it goes all the way over to Fairmount on one
And
side.
everybody has
And
to
for
pay a share,
Oh, yeah, everybody, it's
even if they don't want to be in it?
58.
just commercial?
Just commercial.
Yeah, it is just commercial, and it's anybody who owns commercial property and it has to pay into it.
They haven't raised their rates in like 20 years,
Ever,
so,
ever.
ever, since the
And
beginning,
it's like
so.
$54,000, 57, something like that. It's over $50,000 a year. That's revenue that's connected and turned over to the bid.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries 7-0. And Ann, thank you, because Ann has really been our stalwart, point person on the bid and everything that's going on with the bid, so. All right,
Okay, Resolution 10, be resolved, Town Board, Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby appoint Elizabeth Kucinich to the Conservation Advisory Commission, which term will run from January 1st, 2024.
Should run through December. We're gonna make a friendly amendment and cross out.
Run through, okay.
right.
Well, it says run from January
Yep.
1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024.
But it didn't
Right.
start,
We can't appoint somebody from a year ago. so
yeah,
we're
it's
just-
We-
2025.
Right, we suggest a friendly
Well,
amendment
yeah.
that's just which term will run
run
through
from-
December
Which will run
31st,
through.
2026.
Right,
Right.
just cross out any dates.
Yeah.
Right, because we're filling a term that was empty for a little while.
All right.
Okay?
Thank
All
you
right,
for pointing
and-
that out. too.
Okay, second, I'll second that motion. That,
Yeah, and I'm
So moved.
disappointed to say Elizabeth was here earlier, but she
Yeah,
got
but she
up
had
and
to
left
leave.
after
Yep.
like the first hour,
Yeah, she
so
was
yeah,
very excited to have her join the CAC.
okay.
She's great experience too.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Resolution carries 7-0.
This is setting a date for a public hearing, talking about the Town Code Chapter 210 zoning. It would be to permit tobacco stores in the McDonald Heights Center District by special use permit. So the hearing is set for the 16th day of April at 7 PM here. And the chapter of the town code is 210-27. So that's setting the hearing date. So moved.
Second. Okay. And any discussion? We're
Yep.
setting a hearing date for April 16th.
And when I look at, it is just tobacco stores. We're
Yes.
not cannabis stores, it's just tobacco stores.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Okay.
No problem.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, resolution carries 7-0, April 16th. Okay, grants policy.
Oh, here we are. Whereas town officials frequently identify opportunities to apply for grants that will reduce the town's expenses or improve services, and departments need to act swiftly. Be it resolved that the town board adopts the following policy for grant. Number 1, applications. Grant applications that require a commitment of town funds or town resources must be presented to the town board for approval. Part B of that is grant applications that do not require a commitment of town funds or resources may be submitted to the funder with the supervisor's approval. Both of those points refer to applications. Second part of this is the contracts. When a grant is awarded, acceptance of the grant must be presented to the town board of approval before a contract is executed. So moved.
Second.
I would like to make an amendment to B, that I don't have a problem if something's coming in, but we all should have a know what's going on. So, I mean, how about just sending it to the town board and just getting an informal answer back how we feel about it before you make the determination? Because it's so subjective just to have, one person doing it.
If I could explain for a minute, we have not had the same policy for all departments. The town police have generally, unless there's a match or some, staffing implication or something like that, have gone ahead and submitted, without town board approval. Other departments have not been allowed to do that. So what Emily and I worked on is regularizing that, because I think we should have the same policy for everyone. I do think, it makes sense, we do sometimes have 2 weeks' notice when we hear about a grant, and if there's not gonna be a match or a staffing issue, or it's not gonna cause implications for the town, it's, bulletproof vests, and it's something that we already need, and we're getting money for it, I would like to argue that the supervisor can sign off on that. I'm happy to give people a heads up that that's, that, hey, we submitted this application. But it seems like, it's a little cumbersome sometimes to go, oh my gosh, the deadline's March 15th, our next meeting is March 18th.
Right.
We're gonna, so that's
I get that, I just want notification first, that's all, I wanna be
Sure.
notified, I don't wanna have something go on I don't know about.
Sure, notification is just fine, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, well, that's also something we discussed in the finance committee too, that we want to start including with our finance report, a list of grants, how many grants we have being processed. These are the new grants we've applied for, these are the grants we received, so we'll all be kept in the loop as to what our status is with our grants.
So Sophia, with Millennium Strategies, who does our grant writing, actually has that list on a monthly basis, and we can forward it. It gets fast and furious because stuff comes off, or
Yeah.
we change our minds at the last minute, or whatever. So, but we can make sure that, just ask her to make sure that the board has that list on a regular basis, and we can certainly notify of anything we
It
apply
might
for
be
as
easier
well.
if she provides that list, I think, because
Yep.
my head is spinning, no offense, for
Yeah,
different
no.
things, and
And Mike,
It's hard
that's
to
all,
remember all
we just find out about it, we're not signing,
Right.
you
Right,
don't
I
have to
just-
wait for,
I
perfect.
just wanna know about it, that's all.
Yeah, you don't have to wait for our approval, because
Right.
what if I get the email
I
late?
get it, because we don't get what the police send over sometimes until after they put in for it. And I think every department should be able to put in for a grant if they
Yeah,
want,
I like
if
free
it's
money.
eligible, but I just want to know what's going on.
So let me suggest some language, Mike, which would be in 1B. Grant applications that do not require a commitment of town funds or resources may be submitted to the funder with the supervisor's approval and notification of the board.
There you go.
So I do it?
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
That sounds good, and I don't know if the public should know, but basically when it's approved, I guess. But the language I don't know what you mean by town funds or, resources, so what do you mean, or resources?
Well,
So in
for
other words,
example,
you have to pay for your
people.
salary, the people, to be able
Right.
to execute, whether it's a bid or not, we have to pay town salaries. And
Right.
heat and lights and all those things, so that wouldn't
Right.
require resources if you were to approve it?
That's
I mean,
right.
you have to, it would be your salary.
Well, so for example, let's imagine that the police department wants to buy a boat. We may not have to pay anything matching for the boat, but if we needed new staff members to staff that, or there was a lot of training, or there were other resource implications, not a direct match in the grant itself. Some grants require a match, right? The town has to provide 10% or 20%.
Okay.
Some may not require a match, but they still may have financial implications, because, sometimes you get something for free, and it's not really for free, because then you have to pay for a whole lot of stuff with it. So this is designed to cover both of that.
Yeah, I think
The
that-
supervisor needs to make a judgment of whether there might be any implications, or whether this is just something that the town needs and can get some money for.
I think I'm reading too deep into the language, so
Yes. Okay.
I agree with Mike's
Okay.
amendment, that would be great.
Okay. Anything where I think that there will be any implication budgetary, that, that receiving the grant would cause us to spend anything that we haven't already agreed to spend, needs to come to the board.
Right.
Okay.
Am I reading it right then, that if once applied for, there's two delineations, you have the one that doesn't require any town funds or resources, so that the supervisor can go ahead. But once a contract is, part two, once a contract is agreed upon, whether or not it was one of those, if it was an A or B, it still goes before us for approval?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any money that comes in the door would always be approved.
Okay.
If we get a grant. This just saves some time and energy
Sure.
on the stuff that we maybe don't even get, right?
Right.
And that's gonna be fewer things we have to run through
Right.
in our
Okay.
meeting. But, and we may not get them, but if we get them, the board will need to approve to receive the grant.
Got it.
Okay.
All right, very good.
All right, everybody good?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries 7-0. Okay, 13 was pulled from the agenda. If anyone, just make sure that, the Stratford Farms,
And
we
I'd
still
like
got
to
some more
pull
work to
14
do on
if
that.
that's, I'd like to pull 14 if that's okay, because
Oh.
I have one more thing to tweak, and I
All right,
thought I'd get it done in this week, I can't even describe. Not happening.
okay. We're getting through here quick then. 15, the town clerk events. Any events?
I have the Dutchess County Health Fair that's happening on Saturday, April 12th, and that's going to be from 11 to 2 at the Dutchess Community College Falcon Hall. the health fair and Founder's Day is having a carnival on May 3rd, and fireworks. They submitted 2 different things. And I did get a letter from Holy Trinity about their festival in May, but they're still tweaking the application, so that'll be next time.
Okay.
So we have some
Who's
fun.
having the carnival on May 3rd?
It's a Founder's Day carnival, so it's Vassar
Oh,
College. So
Vassar.
it's just an event that they're having, a couple of food trucks, and we're having fireworks later that evening.
They have it every year,
Yep,
Every year,
for years and years and years.
for years and years and years.
for sure. Okay.
Do you have a date, do you have a date on the church fair? Approximate,
Yeah.
just out of curiosity.
While she's looking for the date.
I
so,
don't, because I didn't
Sorry for
bring
the
it.
board, we do need to go into
Sorry.
executive session for something briefly.
It is in May.
Oh, it's in May. Let's see if we can get a date. But before we go into executive session, let me not forget to do the 3 minutes at the end here. I'd like to move to suspend the rules for anyone who might want to speak to us for up to 3 minutes on any item whatsoever.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Anybody who's in the room who wanted to speak to any items?
Doreen?
Doreen,
Oh,
I was
sorry.
gonna do in the room first. Okay, great, thanks. We're double prepared, look at that, right. Doreen? Welcome.
Yes, thank you. So I have a question on the budget question. Maybe the supervisor, you know this, if not, maybe you can get back to me. So under the town board's budget for contracted services, it was $50,000. And then an additional $40,454 was added to it. So exactly what is contracted services for the town board?
So in this case, I believe, and I can work with the comptroller to confirm, but I'm pretty sure that that's where we, when we had the cyber incident in February, we needed to make some investments in software upgrades and cybersecurity that we had not budgeted, and I think we took that out of the pound, we added that to the town board's budget. I might be wrong, I'm looking for the comptroller to nod or shake her head, but that's correct. Okay, so that was where we ended up ended up overspending on that line because we needed the software and security investments.
Okay, thank you. And then the only other thing, again, quickly, about the pilot program. You know, I attend Dutchess County IDA meetings via Zoom for over 5 years now. You know, and one of the things, the way they always justify granting tax exemptions is they talk about what the tax revenues will be like at the end of the pilot. But they always fail to note what the tax revenue would have been if the project applicant had been paying their full share of taxes. And then, I've brought this up before, oftentimes afterwards, the applicants come in and then they challenge the assessed value of the property, and then they ask for a reduction in the assessed value. So when that happens, projected revenues end up even being lower than stated. So, and then it just shifts the tax burden to the remaining base of taxpayers. And I know, you know, some people dismiss this, but if you look at the New York State Comptroller's yearly report on IDAs, they say in there that property tax exemptions that IDA grant to projects can temporarily reduce the tax base of local governments, which may result in increases to taxpayers' bills. So, you know, at some point, you know, I feel that the taxpayers should not really be funding all of these projects, and certainly when you're getting, you know, what seems to me like little in return. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak?
I'd like to just say something really quick, sorry to scare
Sure.
you. I just want to remind people if they're going to the DMV, because real IDs, you have till May 7th, which I found out when I was booking a trip. I mean, I knew about it for a long time, but it just came up on me. It's really, really crowded there. And you can make an appointment online, and you really should. I went today just to return plates, and I couldn't find how to make an appointment. So I made an appointment for other transactions. And then when I got there, I was able to do something for plates. I was in and out of there in a minute, but when I tell you that place was more crowded than I've ever seen it. It's really crowded. And the Real ID thing is what's causing my office to be extremely crowded.
Yes.
Because a lot of people have papers that don't match and names and this and that, and they get turned away there and they're coming here, and the state I can't comment on right now, but they're a little bit short.
Well, their computers were down on Friday at the DMV, so I had an appointment at 9:15.
Yeah, so just
had to
remind
leave
people that if
and
you're
come
going to the
back.
DMV, you should make an appointment, because my daughter did, and it is definitely helpful rather than just walking in.
Good. We'll try to get the word out and remind people about Real ID as well.
Yep.
Okay, then, with that, I think that we move to return to regular session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 7-0, we return to regular session. Resolution, be it resolved that the town board of the town of Poughkeepsie does hereby adjourn into executive session to consider discussions regarding proposed, pending, or current litigation, and be it further resolved that no action appropriating money will be taken during executive session, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we will go into executive session. Thank you, everybody, very much.